Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Jeff Kozlowski. I'm the head of school at the Sandhill School, which is part of Children's Health Council. I'm going to spend just a few minutes talking about our past. This is Elaine Antipuesto. She's a very cherished teacher at Sandhill, the lead of our math program, and someone that has helped many students with transition. You want to say a few words about yourself?
I am a 7th grade advisory teacher as well. I teach all the middle school math classes, 6, 7, and 8, and I help the lower school with math. That's it.
So I'm Jeff Kozlowski. I have about 25 years in the field of special education and really innovative education. Worked in Hawaii, San Diego, as well as the Bay Area. This is my third opportunity to be the head of school. So I have a very diverse range of experiences in helping students transition in both middle school, high school, as well as college. A big part of the program at the Winston School in Del Mar, we began a transition program back about 10 years ago that was very effective in helping students to gain the skills that are necessary for lifelong success. And really today we're going to talk about those strategies, and we're going to talk at the end about what a good school fit would be for your child. But before we get there, we really want to focus on some of these factors that are at the forefront, priorities in terms of how we can ensure a successful transition. Because it's not only about school, but it's about mindset, and it's about skill set, and it's about social emotional learning. So that's where we're going today. Before we get into the presentation, just a few words about Children's Health Council. Has everyone been to Children's Health Council before? Anyone first time? First time a couple? Okay, so welcome. Children's Health Council has been around for 65 years, founded by Esther B. Clark, who was just revolutionary figure in terms of mental health services. Esther B. Clark School, which is a part of Children's Health Council, was named after her. We're the gold standard when it comes to the Bay Area for providing students in the 1 in 5 movement with the services that they need. So with that said, this is a guideline to CHC Online. So we have weekly conferences with best practices in mind and experts from the area presenting. So if you have interest in any of future presentations, you can go here, and everyone will be provided with the slideshow. So if you don't have access on it on your phone right now, you can pick up a hard copy as well. Oh, and then Mike reminded us at the end of the presentation, there is a survey. So please fill out that survey on how we did. Like I said, Children's Health Council has been around since 1953. We celebrated our 65th anniversary this year. We're really proud of the work that we do in multiple areas, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. What we do for our children, we help them to learn how to learn. We help them to develop grit and resilience. We help them to realize their dreams, make friends, and really realize their potential. So it's kind of ironic because these are the standards for Children's Health Council, but a lot of these areas are what Elaine and I are going to talk about this evening. So really the philosophy of Children's Health Council goes directly into what we do on a daily basis with our children. So that really, really means a lot that this slide was kind of put together by the agency, and yet much of what we're going to talk about today has to do with what's up here. We believe in the promise and potential of every child, teen, and young adult. So, at our core, we're here to serve the 1 in 5 movement. How do we do that? There are multiple components. There are multiple schools on this campus. We have service providers in speech and language pathology, occupational therapy, assessment, mental health. We have, like I said, a school for students that have language-based learning differences, which is the Sandhill School, and students that have behavioral needs, which is Esther B. Clark School. So great range of what we do as an agency. Again, those are some of the areas that we address on a daily basis through our expert staff. Once again, here is a list of some of the things we do. We are a safe space. Students have a right to feel safe when they get here, so that's really important. Last slide before the presentation starts. So every year we put on what's called EdRev Expo. So this is a Children's Health Council event. It is a wonderful display of the 1 in 5 movement. There will be about 100 different schools and service providers there. If you're looking for a new school or a new service, this is a perfect place for you to explore those options. And you can always remember, it's May the 4th, so May the 4th be with you. It will be at the old AT&T Park, which is the new Oracle Arena, same stadium, new name. It's a great time. There are climbing walls for kids. The kids can run the bases while the adults see professionals in action. And then for those of you who don't know, our honorable guest speaker for the day is Steve Young, who actually was a part of Children's Health Council when he had his children assessed here, or a child assessed here. So we're really honored to have Steve Young speak on our behalf at EdRev Expo. Okay, so we're going to talk now about what a successful transition from middle school students to high school means. And I want each of us to kind of put ourselves in the mindset of what we're trying to help you to sort out is this is your child's journey, your child's path, and it's really important. You'll see the theme woven in and out of this presentation. Including your son or daughter in this process is critically important, and we appreciate so much the youth that's in the audience today. Thank you for coming, because this is really about you. And what we hope to provide for families as well as students is that ability to help students to self-advocate so that they can get their own needs met and find their own path to success. So I'm going to talk a little bit about self-knowledge in transition. Miss Elaine's going to go on to self-advocacy and what that means for a successful transition. I'm going to talk about learning strategies and really how to develop learning strategies that go beyond what is taught in the typical school. Miss Antipuesto, Elaine, is she's an expert at social emotional learning, and if you can see her in action, watching her embed social emotional learning into math instruction is something else. So that's a real treat, that part of the presentation. And then we're going to open it up at the end and talk about factors when choosing your child's next school. And so we have some questions, and hopefully you can provide either answers or more questions to that. That will be your opportunity to kind of come together and speak about what your needs may be or your child's needs may be. Okay, so self-knowledge, getting on the same page. What I want you to do, I want you to spend just a few minutes thinking about 5 words that you believe describes your child. What are your hopes and your dreams for your son and daughter at this point in their lives? And what kind of school are you interested in for your child, and why? Yes?
I'd like my daughter to be an independent learner, be able to manage her academic life.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else have the courage to share?
Engaged.
Engaged. I like it. Okay. One more. One more. Come on. Yes. Organized. Thank you. Appreciate it. So now those factors that you have within you, they've probably been pretty stable for some time. You probably have known for a while what your dreams are for your son and or daughter. Now, I want you to turn that a little bit and ask the same question from the perspective of your child. What do you think 5 words they would say about themselves to describe themselves? What do you think their hopes and dreams are at this point in their life? And what type of school do you think they are interested in right now? So for many of you, there are probably some significant differences in what your expectations, your hopes, your dreams are for your child compared to what your child's current state is. On top of that, in the next 4 or 5 years, their hopes, their dreams, their interpretations of themselves, they're going to change dramatically. And again, what Elaine and I are here to do tonight is help to build a bridge between you and your child so that you can navigate this very tough process and turn it into a process that can be fulfilling for your son or daughter and really empower them to find their journey in life. Because you're sitting here tonight, you're thinking about what the next school is for your child, but really you're starting to develop a path that goes through middle school, it goes through high school, it goes through college, it goes through graduate school, it goes through life. And navigating this journey is going to be, it's going to make them the person that they were meant to be. And so we're going to talk about how. So where can we start? We can start with conversations with your child. They may be a little awkward at first. They may be a little difficult at first. There may even be some stress involved. But once you get past that and you continue the dialogue, you can help them to find their independence. And we do this by asking 3 simple questions. How do you learn best? What are your strengths? And what are your accommodations? So self-knowledge. So think about, again, your son or daughter. How do they learn best? There are many different assessments out there. There are many different avenues to explore how an individual learner learns best. Learning styles can be described as a set of factors, behaviors, and attitudes that facilitate learning for an individual in a given situation. That's the formal definition, but truly what we're looking for is what kind of learner are you? And again, there are different ways to think about this. Are you a visual and auditory kinesthetic learner? Are you impulsive or more reflective? Are you left-brained, right-brained? Do you know what multiple intelligences is? And do you know how to navigate what your primary intelligences are and what your areas of growth are in that continuum of multiple intelligences? So I want to talk a little bit about Howard Gardner. Who's heard of Howard Gardner? A few of you, good. So he came up with the theory of multiple intelligences in about 1983. And if you look at the lower right quadrant, for many, many years, most schools, about 90 to 95% of their instruction had to do with being word smart or logic smart, being able to read, write, do math. And what Howard Gardner discovered or uncovered was that each of us has a whole array of intelligences, and many of these intelligences, they lead to very successful careers like art or music or entrepreneurship. So there's more to learning than just word smart and logical smart. So let's start to develop this mindset in schools. And so a part of choosing a school that's right for your child has to do with helping them to determine what kind of learner they are. So very closely related to learning style is your learning strengths. What am I good at? What I'm good at usually is something that I'm interested in and I like doing, which often leads to a passion, which often leads to a life path. So these are little seeds that are planting at this age. And again, having those conversations with your children, helping them to just explore who they are as a learner. We have, well, the next slide. Well, it's down the road. One of the slides has resources with some assessments in You can take a self-assessment on Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences. You can see if you're more of a reflective thinker or a literal thinker. And they're fun. They're usually 10, 20 questions. You can do them as a family. My family sat around when I have a son and a daughter who are college age, and we did some of these assessments so that they can explore what they're good at and what they still need help with. And we turned it into a family evening that involved games and things like that. So again, including your student in the dialogue, I think is the key theme that we want you to uncover tonight. Let's see. So moving on from learning strengths, we go into thinking styles. So this is all building on each other. We have your learning style, we have your strengths, what you're good at, and then we have thinking styles, which is an even higher level of this process. Okay, so there's something called an intelligence fingerprint. You may be a 7 in music and you may be a 4 in math. Not Miss Antipuesto though, she's a 9 in math. Maybe a 10.
Not always.
Based on all of these possibilities, you develop a thinking style. Okay, that could be a reflective thinker, an intuitive thinker, a sequential thinker, a global thinker. And again, there's evidence to show that the types of thinking lead to various types of careers. So once again, you're planting a seed when it comes to how we can start to develop our students' character and let them unfold in the path that they were meant to unfold upon. So we take it one step further. And again, Elaine's she's gonna go into more depth on what Carol Dweck calls the growth mindset. Who's heard of the growth mindset? Hands? Most of you. Very good. She's a Stanford grad, and she's wonderful. So basically, how do we deal with struggle? How do we deal with fear or anxiety or losing that big game or getting a C- on that big math test? Research shows those students that have developed a growth mindset over what's called a fixed mindset are able to navigate these disappointments and look at them as growth opportunities. So again, when you're talking with your students, when you're bringing in, family, teachers, other administrators to these conversations, you want to start exploring if your child has a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. And to be honest with you, I have a son and a daughter. My daughter is 20 and she just got into UC Santa Barbara today, so we're extremely excited. She has a growth mindset, and she cried all the way through calculus on the phone. She's at a community college right now, and it was horrible, but she did it, and she just gritted it out. She has no interest in becoming a math major. I'm really sorry, but actually, Elaine tutored her for a while. My son, on the other hand, he has more of a fixed mindset. We're working on it. He was a star athlete in junior high school, and at 9th grade he got 5 full rides for baseball scholarships, and struggled his sophomore year, and all those scholarships were ripped away from him in 1 week, and he collapsed, literally collapsed, and we had to rebuild him. And he has, because of that experience, he had a fixed mindset when he was a baseball star. He had to kind of get grounded and start over again. And now he has a growth mindset, and we're so proud of him as he marches through his next path in life. And he's following his sister's footsteps, so we're really proud in that way. But so again, Elaine's going to go into more detail, but the growth mindset can evolve, and that's so important for us all to understand. How am I doing, Miss 4 minutes? So I think I'm good. So resources that I had talked about, understood.org is really, it's just an extraordinary website. It's actually connected to EdRev. Children's Health Council is very closely connected to understood.org. You can find answers to most of your questions through this site. So I highly recommend. And so this is This one actually takes you right to that growth mindset as well as learning styles and thinking styles. So you can see what we're trying to do is we're building these individuals from the ground up. I'm going to turn it over to Elaine now.
Hello, can I be heard? Yes. Thank you. Here we go. Social emotional learning. I think it's really important to talk about this. This is one thing you really want to think about when you look at schools, and also when you're thinking about your child and kind of where they're at and what they can like earn most growth in. So I'm going to be talking about social emotional learning with the CASEL framework. It's casel.com, CASEL, and they're one of the kind of standards in social emotional learning. So if you're unfamiliar with SEL, raise your hand if you've like heard of SEL in schools or like kind of that. Okay. So it's basically just social emotional learning is a process which we teach how to manage emotions in a school setting. So that can be academic, it can be social, if you're like, or themselves, like their own self-identity. It's like every way that emotion is incorporating into like the student and like how they're managing those emotions. One thing I'll say is when you start looking at high schools, you definitely want to ask what their SEL program is, what frameworks they're using. You want to make sure that that's the right fit for your child. Because most schools now have an SEL program, and they should have been talking about it for about 5 to 10 years already. And if they haven't, I would say that's kind of a red flag that they're not really doing that work, they're not doing that thinking. And I would just be a little wary just because every educator and every education institution should be really thinking about that, especially now. There's just a lot of stuff that young kids deal with, not just academics. So I'm going to kind of briefly go through the framework. Well, this has a couple cool like things if you wanted to read it, like why do we do this? Well, you're going to have increased academic achievement if you're doing real work with SEL, improved behavior, and strong return on investment. The stronger a student is in SEL, so if they're social emotional learning, I'd say it's just easier for that student to apply themselves, create goals for themselves, achieve what they want, and another graphic. I'm not going to go over it too much, but you can just look at it and definitely check out the website. The CASEL website has so much in there for you. So there's core competencies. So in the center you have social emotional learning. There's 5. There's self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision making. And this is not just like a school thing. This is also like classrooms and their whole school and at homes and in the community. This is something that's ingrained in students. So when they're learning these things, it's with them everywhere. And that's really great. So I'm just going to briefly kind of touch on each, and each one I have, well, not each one, but some of them I have like an example or cool thing. So self-awareness, these are kind of the qualities of self-awareness: identifying your emotions, self-perception, recognizing your strengths, self-confidence, self-efficacy. Self-awareness, so development of individual self and concept identity. So one thing I do consciously in my teaching, and what I tell like parents, is you can never have enough specific praise or compliments to really let that student or your child know how you really feel or what you really appreciate. And that's something, small thing that everybody can do to kind of foster that in a child. So I have a video. There you are. Yeah, I don't want this video. I'm going to turn up the volume, so if you can't hear it at first, you'll hear it in a minute.
Oh, this is hot.
Can you hear me? Loud and clear?
Hello,
Just taking the time to make
So
compliments.
Wes, I know you've been my boss
people
for a
you love.
couple of years now. You
Do 3 a week.
have been a really great mentor to me, and I really appreciate that.
So I just want to thank you for being a great dad. You're always there to support me, even when I say, no, I don't really need this talk right now, but you're there nevertheless, and it's always just great to have someone to rely on.
For the past 12 years, you've been my best friend, and I want to thank you for everything you've done for me.
You've always been there for me, my number one friend. I think we both know that this is going to go a lot farther than school.
Although I know we've only been married for a year and a half, I know I don't always acknowledge how awesome you are.
You have a great sense of humor. You're witty and sharp.
You're a kind person and always thoughtful of others.
You are one of the sweetest, kindest, most thoughtful men and people in my life, and I really appreciate that.
And the whole time you were growing up, you made it so easy to be a mom. And I don't know if I've ever told you that.
You are absolutely beautiful, absolutely, and you are so, so talented. Keep doing what you're doing, because it is going to take you places.
Do we switch spots? Is that what we do?
Jackson.
Yes? I'm so lucky that you're in my life today as not only a coworker, but as a friend. You're someone that inspires me every day just to keep a positive attitude and to laugh and smile and stay lighthearted.
I always really appreciate how you start singing at the drop of a hat, because you have such a beautiful voice, and I love the way that you filled my whole childhood with song.
First met you 12 years ago in kindergarten, and I'm so glad I did because you've been my best friend ever since. It's the best, so thanks.
The compliment I want to give you today that I've never said to you before is your awareness of other people and how nice you are to everyone in the room.
You're very good at making everyone in a room smile, putting everyone at ease. I admire that so much in you.
You're honestly such an amazing person. You are my best friend in the world, and you always will be. All I can say is that I really love you, and I don't know, it might be hard for you to believe because I don't act like it sometimes, but I do.
I like to say that I take after you because I think that you're just such a great person, and I aspire to be more like you as an adult. And I think that if I could be just like my mom, that would be the greatest gift I could have.
You're the most beautiful woman I know. I'm so blessed to have you in my life. I probably don't tell you that enough. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it there. It's a cool video. And so how did you guys feel watching that? Anyone feel really good? Some people feel a little uncomfortable. Yeah, so we all kind of take compliments differently sometimes, and I'll say, this is one, I think one of our parents had said this, that sometimes a compliment can be something really cherished. Sometimes we don't take the time to say things like that, and it can be something really simple. Whenever I think about SEL for my classrooms, I know I have to be very conscious and purposeful about carving out time for it, whether that be embed it in a worksheet or create this time like, oh, it's 10 minutes before class is ending, we're going to do this thing that we do. You can have like compliment time, or I have for middle schoolers we have shout outs. So, but we have shout outs every Friday. They give shout outs, specific shout outs. I have sentence starters for them to make it specific and meaningful. But it can really just change a person. All right, compliments. Next, we have social awareness. That encompasses perspective taking, empathy, appreciating diversity, respecting others. I'm not sure if I have a thing for that. Relationship skills, communication, social engagement, relationship building, teamwork. Do I have a thing for this? So one thing I have about this, communication can be extremely important. And one thing I see from young people is how they phrase concerns. Just take a look at these. So concerns versus complaints.
So raise your hand if the young person you know just complains a lot about stuff. You don't have to raise your hand, we know. Just about anything, right? Like, oh, I don't know. Where's my phone? It's not fast enough. My pencils are broken. I don't know. But for in my class, when we have complaints, it's usually because a student is feeling anxious or they don't understand something. Something's really hard. They have a lot of negative emotions about this thing that I am asking. So one way, instead of kind of, you know, saying, don't say that, or stop complaining, you can be purposeful and build in routines for complaints and have sentence starters and say, oh, it sounds like you have a concern. Let's phrase your concern. And so for my students, I'll say something like, this is our procedure. We raise our hand. If I'm in the middle of teaching something, you're going to ask, can I have a professional conversation with you later? And I'll say, yep. And then they have sentence starters. I have a concern. This is how I feel. And if they can ask for an accommodation or anything, then that's great. If they're not there yet, then I might suggest some, because I'm the adult and I know that that's how they're feeling and that I need to meet them where they're at. So this is hard for me because can I instead do this other thing? So sometimes it's really hard for young people to express their emotions or ask for what they need. As an adult, we can provide scaffolds for them so that it's easier to attain for them to ask what they need. We can teach that to them. So then it's not always a fight, like stop, and then they feel shut down and we're all mad. Cool. Next is responsible decision making. So this has identifying problems, analyzing situations, solving them, and evaluating and reflecting. So an ethical responsibility, there's a lot in there. So one thing that is really helpful, so like some kids, like they don't know how to solve their problems. They know they're angry, or they know that if something happens, they feel anxious. I had a student who every time we did a time test, the student would freak out, like really bad. And what's very helpful is feeling thermometers. If they can't problem solve on their own emotions, they just know they feel bad, they're avoiding things, like trying to do avoidance. You can do an exercise like having a feeling thermometer, and you can ask them like, well, how do you feel about when we have to go see the relatives? Where are you at? How do you feel when we are taking a time test? How do you feel when you lose a game? Sort of thing. And they can kind of like, now they see this, they can kind of like write that thing in there. And as adults, we can kind of look at it and then like, now we're kind of a little more empowered. We can see what it is and we can talk more about it and we can target areas and say, well, let's work on this one thing. Instead of like, you know, trying to talk to a kid about 5 things they're very anxious about, you can choose 1 or 2 things and kind of chunk it down so students aren't overwhelmed that they have to change too many things at once. Cool. And this one is self-management, impulse control, stress management, self-discipline, self-motivation, and goal setting. Kind of an executive functioning piece. I have an organizational skills. Yeah. So goal setting is kind of hard. Raise your hand if you've ever had a New Year's resolution. Raise your hand if you might not have accomplished it. Yeah. So for adults, it's hard, and for kids, it's hard. And what can be helpful is having framework. There's a lot of searchable goal setting framework. Like raise your hand if you're familiar with SMART goals. We use a program here at Sand Hill. It's called Second Step. I highly recommend it. As a teacher, and I get a lot of curriculum that I need to teach, this is one of the ones that I really enjoy. If a school doesn't have it, you could recommend it. But I'm going to show you a quick video. I'm not going to show you the whole thing. I'm just going to show you some of it. So this video is from Second Step, and it is about goal setting. I'm only going to play, well, I don't know how long it is, but I'm only going to play 2 minutes.
What does it mean to have goals? When you think of something in the future that you want to achieve, that's a goal. Reaching goals can be fun and rewarding, but it does take work to get there. A goal is basically a target, somewhere you'd like to be. Can you think of an activity or a skill you'd like to learn this year? Or something you dream of accomplishing or becoming 10 years from now? How will you get there? To help you reach your goal, you can start by making it SMART. SMART goals are specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and timely. But what does all this mean? Very simply, it means, first, break your big goals into small, simple steps or stepping stones that will help you get closer and closer to your dream. Later, we'll come up with a plan for each small, simple step. So let's say your big goal is to serve in student government. 3 stepping stones to get there could be research which positions are available, interview council members to find out if you'd like the job, and create the perfect campaign poster for yourself. Remember, each small, simple step you take puts you 1 step closer to your dream come true. If your big goal is to run a 5K race, 3 stepping stones might be jog every day after school, join a running team on the weekends, and find races to run. Without a clear plan of action, any goal, big or small, is really just a wish. To get it done, you need a plan. Scientists have been busy researching which plans work best to help people reach their goals. And do you know what they found? There's one type of plan that can double your chance of success, the if-then plan. If-then plans are all about action. They're a great way to remind yourself when to do what needs to be done. So, you really want to design the ultimate campaign poster? Let's create an if-then plan to know how to get that done. If you see a good design idea, then make a note or take a picture. What about jog every day after school? Here's an if-then plan that can help. When you're getting ready in the morning, then make sure your running shoes and clothes are ready. The more you practice your if-then plan, the closer you'll get to achieving your goal.
Okay.
Is Second Step a specific program for SEO?
It is, yes. Another program, it's not SEL, it's EF, but it's executive functioning, but it also has goal setting, is the SMARTS EF program. That's the one, the executive functioning program we use. It's like SMARTS with an S at the end, like SMART. That one's pretty good. Cool. So I'm almost done. So there's also a lot of cool graphics online if you've ever searched that I really like. These are 2 that I kind of like. So now what we're going to do is something kind of cool. We're going to do a little quiz. So if you want to get your phone out, if you want to participate, get your phone out. This is just kind of for fun. So we're going to do a Kahoot. Anyone do a Kahoot before? Okay, so I'm going to click on this. So what you want to do is, so here you go. You want to go to kahoot.it, and this is the code. All right, ready? Okay, we have to start. Sorry, guys. If you're not in, I'm really sorry. Ready, and go. First one. You ready? Social emotional learning. Yeah. All right. Which 2 qualities belong to the framework of self-awareness? 2 qualities. Communication and teamwork. teamwork, perspective taking, and empathy. Impulse control and stress management, identifying emotions and recognizing strengths. Seconds. We're all gonna model a growth mindset too. Cool. Good job. All right, Mom. Okay.
First place. Always.
Which two qualities belong to self-management? Self-discipline and goal setting. Self-motivation and organizational skills. Impulse control and stress management. All of the above. You can play mentally if you're not. You are running out the clock. Yay. Good job. All right. We got CC. What happened to Mom? Oh. Sorry, Mom. Which two qualities belong to relationship skills? Relationship skills. Y'all sound so good. Ooh, tricky.
Wow.
Communication and teamwork. All right, S. S. Isn't that 007? Like, isn't that a lady called S? Okay. Social awareness. Two qualities. Empathy and perspective taking. Social engagement, communication, self-confidence, and recognizing strengths. Or all of the above. Ooh, I tricked a lot of people there. Empathy and perspective taking. Sorry, guys. Ooh, it's not always that one.
All of the above.
All right, S, you're still there. I know, it's awful. If you are practicing reflecting and identifying situations, you are practicing which framework thing? Reflecting and identifying situations. Ooh, responsible decision making. So evil. All right, S. Asian Mario. Okay. Good job. So I hope you had fun with SEL. Really consider it question schools. What do they have? What do they focus on? Some schools focus on different SEL strategies than others. So there's some links here for like SEL camps. There's like some cool stuff in there that you can look at. Oh, questions? This one? I think I just searched on Google like SEL posters or something. Yeah. I can't control what I can control. I just thought it was really cool. I really liked it. Just understanding what you have power over and what you don't, and to not stress the stuff that you can't do anything about. So,
Having
cool.
that inner circle.
Yeah. So, it was cool. It's on Google. It's like one of the first things. Like you just hit images and it's like right there.
So you can see that we're building a foundation for and with our students. We're looking at learning styles. We're looking at what their mindset may look like, their thinking strategies, how they deal with failure. We're building on social emotional learning, giving them strategies for all of these areas. And then we get to, we have to face academics. And I think many of you are here with the goal in mind of how do we get our student into the best high school possible, and how do we ensure that their academic skills are at a level that they can be appropriately challenged to get into the best college eventually. And so what we want to look at is learning strategies, okay? So in the world that we live in with all of this wonderful technology, students have access to more information than many of us have ever had in our entire life within, a 20-second period. So taking a step back and looking at how to learn is going to be critically important for our 21st century learners to continue to excel in this world. So we have this base in mind. We have strong resilience, we have strong social emotional skills, we have a strong relationship, and we have resources around them, both family, friends, as well as maybe outside resources to support their growth. And then again, at Sandhill, what we do, once we have all of those factors in place, we challenge those learning strategies. And what is a learning strategy? So it teaches a student how to learn rather than teaching them a specific curriculum content. So we're not talking about what happened in 1865. We're talking about how to access that information and apply it to either their own life or whatever question is at hand. And again, this is where it really gets fun for our teachers, because this is where all of those relationship skills that they've built over time pay off and allow those students to take those educational risks. So it's taking all of those skills, everything that is within them intrinsically, their learning style, their learning strategies, their thinking strategies, and applying it to a particular situation within the academic framework. So if you look online, or if you talk to any teacher, there are thousands of learning strategies out there. So we're not here tonight to give you learning strategies per se. What we would like for you to realize is that, again, with these conversations that you have with your child, with these conversations that you have with the educational team and social emotional team around your child, you can begin to differentiate what learning strategies are going to be most critical for their success. So is that organization? Is that time management? Is it learning specific note-taking strategies or reading comprehension strategies, textbook skills, study strategies, test-taking skills? It goes on and on and on. So it can be a little bit overwhelming if you think about, there are hundreds of strategies for each of these categories, and many experts will tell you that all of these categories are critical to your child's success. So how do we get through it? Well, if you start with your strengths, if you start with your learning styles, you can begin to pick out which are the critical areas. So, for example, we look at the writing process. So, a ninth grade English teacher gives a student a 5-paragraph essay. However, your son or daughter, they're only writing 3-sentence paragraphs because they didn't have the writing strategies in place when they were in junior high school. So what do? Well, we break it down and we teach them the writing process. So rather than the product of, here's this 5-paragraph essay on Brave New World or whatever the book is, we teach them how to write. And that will make all the difference in the world. So rather than continuing to kind of paddle upstream and try to fight the system and hire tutors to help them do their work, if there is a tutor in mind or an executive functioning coach in mind, it's way more productive to help your child learn how to learn than just help them to finish the assignment that's in front of them, because that becomes a lifelong strategy. And again, we're looking at 4 years of high school, 4 to 12 years of college, learning throughout their career. So planting that seed, once again, from a very early age, helping them to understand that they have areas of need, take test-taking skills, for example. Many students have test anxiety and or test apathy, so they may know the information, they may have used their comprehension strategies, their note-taking strategies, their study strategies, they are prepared for the test, they get there, they freeze, they get 20 points lower than they had expected, and if they would have only had those calming strategies built into their test-taking skills, they may have, gotten 20 points higher on that formal assessment and changed their whole trajectory. So, do you see why we start with self-awareness? If a student understands what their needs are and they are able to advocate for what their needs are, maybe with you as parents first, or to a trusted teacher, or to a best friend, or to grandma and grandpa, or whoever, then they start to build a path towards that self-advocacy and get their needs met in this large array of strategies that the great thing is the resources are out there. I mean, all you have to do is Google any of these words and you'll get lists upon lists of strategies that may or may not help your child. Are there any questions on this concept? Because I can't emphasize this enough in terms of how you can help your child go to the next level and really start looking for the school that's going to be the right school for that fit. Yes?
Can I point out that all of our kids, this is the wrong timing for this. Our kids are already they've been accepted to high schools, or they're just about to go there. We're not searching for schools. Most of the people near their kids are already in Cal or Gun. So the constant pitch of picking the schools is too late in the year.
And what I will say is, again, it is a process, so I appreciate that, and I know the 22nd is that magic date for acceptance. And this path, it really doubles down when you start thinking about college. It is a very similar path towards college. So you can use all of this information for that next step when you start looking at the right school in terms of that college for your child, whether it's a community college, a state school, a private school, a UC school. So again, this is a lifelong journey, and these are the same strategies that you will use as your child grows up. Good question, though. And I did think of that because what we've been doing at Sandhill for the last 2 or 3 weeks is helping parents navigate their choices. There's a lot of information coming back. You're getting a lot of acceptances, maybe some disappointments, and helping that family to navigate choice this is what we're doing right now. Yes. Uh-huh. Right. Yeah, because everyone's at a different stage. And really, this conversation, this is something that we hope that families start thinking about, as early as 4th, 5th grade, because you take those steps, and of course the path evolves as your child grows and new needs emerge. That's really important to keep in mind as well. So you have some it's using the same strategies that we're teaching in social emotional learning with your family dynamic to help navigate this journey in the way that is best going to facilitate their success. Okay, so let's see, Miss Antipuesto, how much time do I have? I'm probably running out of time. So I will, I'll wrap this up. The last thing I'll say in terms of learning strategies, if a student isn't ready, then we're all wasting our time. So if they're given that 5-paragraph essay and they're not able to write a paragraph, hiring a tutor will only have the tutor basically do the homework for and with that child. So sometimes we do have to step back and we have to learn how to learn, which may include those prerequisite skills, finding the main idea, finding the topic sentence, learning what theme means. Wherever they are, that's where you start when you have these opportunities, if you have a tutor or you know, an executive functioning coach that's working with your child. Yes?
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you are, it seems like you're putting the parent in the teaching role, which I think sometimes can be difficult. Wouldn't it be important to take a look at the present school and what they're doing, and are they meeting these needs? I mean, this should be taken care of in a good middle and elementary school if the child is of an average or above average ability.
Without question. So what I'm trying to help you to do is to think about the questions that you're going to ask when you're either at your child's current school, looking at an eventual transition, and even more importantly, that potential next school, helping to ask the right questions. So in other words, if it's a writing need, which we were talking about, when you're sitting down with the admissions director or the assistant head of school or whoever, you may ask, you know, so my child, you know, is 2 years behind grade level in terms of writing. Here's a writing sample. What would you do with this child in order to support them? Knowing that, you know, they're probably they're gonna give you, some schools will give you, you know, they have very high standards. So how do you get from an area of need to these high standards that the family and the child really, really wants and needs? And so those are the questions that you ask. So you're kind of the navigator of this journey. You're not the one that's actually giving the, you know, the instruction, but you will help find the right tutor, executive functioning coach, and school ultimately to lead to that student's success. But yeah, that's a great question. Other questions before I hand it back over to Elaine? Yes.
What you just said, where could I find an executive functioning coach? Like, it's easy to find a tutor, but is there certain resources or places to look, or?
So actually there's information up at the front, the white information. So Children's Health Council actually offers executive functioning coaching. They may be special ed teachers, they may be educational specialists, but they have training in executive functioning, and then it's individualized for that student. So based on priorities. So is it an organization? Is it metacognition? Where is the student? So part of that process is pulling the family in and maybe even the teaching team to help support what that student's needs are. All right, well, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Thank you. Hi. So I know we talked about growth mindset, but I'm actually talking about resiliency. Raise your hand if you've heard of resiliency in terms of education. Okay. I think it's relatively newer than the growth mindset and words and grit, but I really like resiliency because it's in the SEL framework, and it's also it has growth mindset and grit in it. So I wanted to talk about this. Here's some bullet points of what resiliency is. Positive outcomes, despite high risks, competence in the face of stress, adapting to trauma, and using challenges for growth. This is by Dr. Greg Ells, PhD in counseling. I really liked his TED Talk, and I'm going to talk about his framework. But there are in the resources, there's like the TED Talk link. You can search it, and he does a really good talk. I like this definition also of resiliency. Yeah, your heart's broken. Make art with the pieces. I wanted to show a video. I don't know if I have time. I'll do 2 minutes. I want to do 5, but I don't think we're going to have time. So I'll do 2 minutes. But if you wanted to watch the video, it's also in the resources. This is another doctor who's really good, Sam Goldstein, and he did a great talk also on resiliency.
ago, in the course of my work as a neuropsychologist, I was fortunate to have an experience with a child that would change my mindset. My mindset about what I do, how I do it, and why I do it. For the last 30 years, I've been the clinical director of a neuropsychology clinic in Salt Lake City where we see about 300 children each year. And I tell people that ours is the 3-3-3-3 clinic. And that's not our address. To reach the doors of our clinic, children typically have to upset, worry, or annoy at least 3 adults for at least 3 years, in at least 3 ways, in at least 3 settings. Ours tends to be the stop of last resort. And parents come to see me not so much because they're concerned about the future, but because they're concerned about how the present may adversely affect the future. I am a futurist. They want me to gaze into the eyes of their children and see that future, and if that future doesn't appear bright and happy, then they want me to be an odds maker, help them understand how to change or how to alter that future. And on this particular day, I was meeting with a tween. We're all familiar with that term, a child who's old enough to think they know everything, but not necessarily old enough to be responsible for anything that they think they know. And I asked this boy what it would take for him to have a good day. And without hesitation, he responded, "Dr. Sam, a good day is when bad things don't happen." And I asked him to explain. He proceeded to tell me about his typical day from the time he woke up in the morning till the time he went to bed. There was some problem, adversity, challenge, or otherwise difficulty that he encountered, from relations with his siblings to meeting his parents' expectations to problems on the playground or in the classroom. And he ended by saying, "So you see, Dr. Sam, if none of that happens, then I've had a good day." I asked him if he never got out of bed, would that be a good day? And he answered, "Oh no, my mother would never let me do that." Think about how his mindset about the world was being shaped, that his view of the world was becoming a place where you avoided challenges, avoided mistakes, avoided anything that in any way could lead to you being judged adversely. And I was reminded of a mother who brought me a note that was fairly brief, that was written by her son to God. But I think he probably wanted someone else to read it. And it was very short. It said, "Dear God, can you help me be better in school?" His mother was distressed because she realized he wasn't asking to do better. He was questioning his worth as a person. He was asking to be better. I had forged my careers on finding out what was wrong with children. I'm very good at what I do. I can find something wrong with every one of you. I'm very good at it. And I had the mistaken belief that if I found what was wrong and I fixed it, then I was doing my job. And from that point forward, I started a journey to ask the question, what really makes a difference in who we become and how we turn out in life? And my journey led me not just to the science, but to my own personal experiences in life and the lives of the children that I worked with day in and day out. And I soon discovered this science of resilience, this fairly recent, in terms of research, area in which we've investigated what makes a difference. And there really are 3 areas.
I'm going to touch upon each pieces of the framework and kind of ways to think about it, and how, maybe discuss how we can kind of incorporate that with the children we know. I like this one that he said too, experience trumps genetics over time. I don't know, I like that. So the framework I'm going to talk about is the SAVES framework. So social connection, attitude, values, emotional acceptance, and silliness. Okay. So the first one is social connection. It's really important in order to foster resilience. Some things to ask yourself. Like, how do we connect to others? Some easy ways that you can have teens connect better with people is to do something for others. Surround yourself with resilient role models. Doing something for other people will release dopamines and oxytocin to the person who's doing something for somebody. So that's always a good ritual you can always do. So I like this picture. It's really hard for me to make it out, but it's a guy in a boat in some really bad water with some sharks, and he's hugging a swan. It's a weird cartoon. So this picture kind of shows the social connection with saying, like, when things are really bad, who is your swan? Like, who's the person? Find your swan. Who's the person you can lean on? Who's your rock? And we want to make sure as young people, they always have somebody they can go to for every situation. Okay. Next is attitude. So there's like some P's for the attitude piece. Permeance, pervasiveness, personalization. It's basically growth mindset. It's kind of framed a little differently, but I know growth mindset when I see it. So if you're familiar, there's the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. Fixed is where you think that's who you are, you're not good at that, I'm not going to try that. Growth mindset is more like, I'm not good at it yet, but I'm going to get good at it. I know if I just keep trying or just do a little bit every day, I can see my growth, and at some point I might not be the best in the world, I might not be better than that person in my class, but I'm going to be better than what I am today. And so the first P for the attitude is permeance. So this is the idea things can change, which is really nice. Taking a step back to see the whole picture. So one thing I teach or show is the power of yet. If you really want to instill growth mindset into a student or a child, and you don't have a lot of time, and it's really hard, structuring stuff is really hard, you can always, when they say something really negative, like, I don't know, I'm bad at math, or I can't do that, you just say yet. That's it. You just say yet, and you look them in the eye, and now you say it now. And then they'll say it, and you're like, there you go. So I have a cool video, because this is like, I have to show this because it's a great video. This is Janelle Monáe singing The Power of Yet. And I don't know if we can watch the whole thing because of time, but you're going to love it, and you can watch it on YouTube if you like. She's in Sesame Street.
You tried to add, but the numbers came out wrong. You tried to sing, but you didn't know the whole song. You tried to cook, but the food, it didn't taste right. You tried to dunk, but you didn't get enough hype. You didn't do it right now, but keep trying, you learn how. You just didn't get it yet, but you'll get it soon, I bet. That's the power of the yet. Yet. That's the power of the yet. Yet. That is what you get with the power of the yet. Come on. You tried to ride, but you couldn't make the letter R. You tried to jump, but you didn't make it very far. You tried to drum, but you couldn't find a downbeat. You tried to dance, but you tripped on your own feet. Just breathe.
I wish we had the time to watch the whole thing. It was really cool. Jazzes me up. But you can definitely watch it. If you have little ones, they will love to watch this over and over. So get them started young. All right, so you can always say yet. That's a great one to do. Okay, cool. Next, so some growth mindset. So growth mindset is highly searchable. If you just search for graphics, there's so many wonderful graphics out there that illustrate growth mindset. One thing I like to do is like have the quotes up there, like in your class or somewhere, and you can always ask kids, well, let's reframe that. Like, which one do you like? Say the one you like. And it's really a helpful tool for kids to reframe their thinking. All right, next is pervasiveness. This one sounds kind of negative, but it's have the power to contain negative events and grow the positive. So Organizing your feelings, having a more awareness of your feelings. Kind of like what we talked about with SEL, just like being aware of what you have power over and what you don't. So kind of just growing what you do have power over, and like all the good things and all the negative things, we're not going to give power to that. We're just going to let it be, and we're going to focus on what we can do. All right, personalization, context. So some students have this. They think, they kind of personalize their failures, saying like, I failed because of this negative thing. Like I look not good, or I am not smart, that sort of thing. And morally taking a step back and just thinking about your circumstances and your situation. Well, like I played the flute since I was 8, and I remember my mom, she's an immigrant, and she doesn't know how to play the flute. And so I worked really hard to be very good, and I was first chair and everything. And I remember another girl, her mom played the flute, and she got taught every day by her. And at some point, she beat me for first chair, and I was really sad. And I think about that a lot. And, I thought, like, am I bad? Am I just not good enough? But, I want to bring context to it and say, I don't have... I don't have that resource, so I'm just going to work harder and just kind of bring more context to what I need to do to reach. And I don't need to be first year all the time. it's fine. It was fun to play. So, all right, values, finding something we can hold on to when the storms are beating us down. So just really being purposeful again and talking to young people about what are their values. So they're aware of those are the things that centers them. This is actually from my advisory. I asked them to write what are their 3 core values. They're in 7th grade, so humor was number 1. The bigger it is, the more students said that. And I gave them a list of values. I had them choose. But you can see that some students, how they feel, and kind of validating that for your child, and really talking about it with them. Oh, why is that? And kind of getting to know more of what they feel is really important. Emotional acceptance. This one's a little deep because I feel like we're in this culture of avoidance. We don't tend to gravitate towards things as a culture that is hard or difficult. Or boring. So we say things like, it's boring, do I have to do this? That sounds hard. I want to do the easier one, which is the option with least problems, Ms. Antipuesto. I don't know. As a culture, we're not really skilled in handling negative emotions. It's not something we give a lot of time to. So this sounds like a negative thing. It's actually a positive thing. So you want to cultivate a creative hopelessness. Being okay with the negative, but feeling creative with it. So stick with the negative, uncomfortable emotions, accept what is. Ask yourself, what is this about? Why do I find this boring? It's probably because I'm not good at it, and I should probably ask for more help. I thought that was nice. I liked this a lot. So avoidance, you kind of get to this place where you're fighting something you don't want to do. It's something like this. And instead of fighting it, I really liked this creative hopelessness of just kind of letting go and not fighting it, and asking yourself, why am I feeling like this? And stop struggling with it, and kind of either being okay with it or being okay and then trying to find different solutions for it. It's a little abstract. Cool. The last one I really like is silliness. Raise your hand if your child that you're thinking of is a little quirky, a little, makes you go, that's a little weird. Yes, every student of mine makes me feel like that. So one thing you want to do is their silliness is joy in them, and they're kind of being themselves, and that's who they are. And one thing you really want to do is celebrate that instead of kind of saying, don't do that. That's bad. So one thing I do in my advisory classes, I don't have like a set advisory plan every week, because sometimes I try to let them lead me, like who are they, what are their personalities. And one year I had a very, very quirky advisory, and they loved memes. They would meme it up every time. They would make memes. So we actually made a video. We made a whole movie called Stranger Memes, because they like stranger things. And we made memes, and this is a meme of one of my students. She made of herself. And then I made a meme of myself, and that's my little first grade picture. So this is one of my examples of really celebrating the child, because learning, you can't really learn anything if there's no joy in it, or you don't, well, I mean, there can be purpose, but I would say, I would advocate for things are much better learned if there's joy in it. So that's one thing. I taught this game called the 4 4s in my class, and another quirky class started saying 4, 4, 4, 4. There's 4s all over the place, and this girl who is very anxious about math, she doodles when she can. And so she doodled this cartoon of our class, and everyone's going around saying 4, 4, 4, 4. And she like named a bunch of people, and then she put me in the corner. What have I done? And I hung it. I was like, that's great, I love that. So these little bright moments you want to experience with your young person and really celebrate, because they're showing you how they love learning. And that's a really great way for us to know. And that's pretty much it, and I'll end it there. Maya Angelou, it's a really great quote about resiliency.
All right, we're getting to the home stretch. So with all of that information, we've given you a lot of information. We didn't go into depth, but you know what you're facing, and the reason you're here tonight is to help your student choose the next school. And whether they are already admitted to the next school, if they're still in the process. True story, right before this meeting, a parent came in, and they have 2 really good choices. One of them is ideally academically, and one of them is ideally socially. So what we have to do is we have to ask those really tough questions. And so we're going to end the presentation with factors that you should consider with your child, and you can even bring some of these questions to the table if you haven't met with those school leaders yet, in order to help you to make that decision. And again, helping your students to have voice in this decision-making process, because trust me, they will have voice when it comes to college. And so if you don't start giving them that voice now when they're thinking about high school, there probably will be conflict down the road. So what are these questions? Well, there are many of them, and they're in your presentation. And anyone can speak up if they have a particular point to make or question about the question. But you know, for starters, is your child destined to go to the traditional school? Are they going to go to that public school that is in their neighborhood? Or will they be more successful with a collaborative, non-competitive approach, project-based themes, hands-on teaching? The great thing about our area is there are schools available for many different types of learning styles. And exploring thoroughly those options, and then when you're sitting down with those professionals, asking what their project-based learning theme may look like, or what their hands-on approach may look like in action. When your student shadows at the school, helping them to embrace some of those nuances or unique features of the school is going to help them make the right choice. Another question, what special learning assistance does your child require? Does your child need a tutor, a resource room, an aide, assistive tech, small classes, teachers licensed in special education?
Regular classroom teachers need to be knowledgeable about their subject matter and learning differences. So again, this is something that you may want to process over the next several weeks. And again, even if you have already found that school, having a follow-up meeting and bringing some of these questions to the table will set the tone for a successful beginning. Because there's nothing we want more than that student to go in with a sense of empowerment, feeling like they can self-advocate, knowing who their resources are, where to turn, and how to get that support, how to find that passion, how to connect with that teacher that may take them to the next level. Scheduling, some students are high-level athletes, some may have a lot of travel, some may be in a musical production after school. So does your child need flexible scheduling? Do they need extended time? We touched on accommodations, but that is another huge area that you can dive deep into. What does your child need to access the curriculum? Is it assistive technology? Is it voice-activated software? Is it important to see opportunities for students with learning differences to demonstrate their strength? How important are your school's test scores to you? How important are the test scores to your child? Does your child's current test scores reflect the expectations of that school or the mean average of their test scores? If there's a big differentiation, that may be a red flag. The rigor of curriculum, the number of hours a typical student spends doing homework. Is it 1 hour? Is it 5? Are there a lot of AP offerings? Is that something that your child wants? Is that something you want and your child doesn't want? So how do we start? Again, we start with these conversations with our child in a safe environment, allowing them to have an authentic voice. And maybe they ask some of these questions to you as a parent. That will help break the ice to, again, empower them to develop their voice, develop their self-advocacy, ultimately their grit, resilience, growth mindset. We talked a little bit about technology. Is it a smart classroom? Are there innovative laptops? Are there smart boards? Are there Promethean boards? Are teachers trained in the technology? Or is it more of a, hands-off where students will be found on computers, but they're not necessarily navigating what the assignment is? We have connections with schools that have a great technology program. We work with schools that it may be a little bit hands-off in terms of teachers. So those are important questions. And then what is your child's level of expertise? Are they on the computer all the time at home? And maybe technology, a school that's full of technology is not the best fit for them because they can get more authentic experiences in other avenues. Of course, extracurricular activities. We started this presentation with asking what your child may find important. I would imagine that socialization and friendships would be near the top of many of their lists. So what extracurricular activities are offered? What are the opportunities for clubs or after-school groups and such? And then again, what is your priority versus what the child's priority is? Is diversity a factor for you? Is recognition of the students' achievements? Are there a lot of awards and rewards at that school? Will your child feel like they are embraced and or will they feel like they aren't worthy if they're not getting that recognition that maybe other students may come? So it's forward thinking and pre-planning along the way. Discipline policy. So again, we're having many meetings with families that are in the process of transitioning, and listening to their stories is eye-opening. Some schools run a very tight ship like Miss Antipuesto's classroom. I mean, you go in there and you know exactly what's going on. Other schools, they have a little bit more of a loose policy, and you know, some of the students may be swearing during tours and things like that. So when you're doing that visit, when you're doing that shadow, keeping your ears open about the culture, because they're probably presenting their best culture in front of you. So you have to remember what it's going to be like when you're not there, and when things kind of settle in, you know, after a week and a month and a year at that school. Are you interested in parent involvement? Is being connected to that community really important for you? How does your child learn? So we're going to summarize. We are just about out of time. 4 main factors we want you to pull from tonight's presentation. First of all, remembering how your child learns. Secondly, remembering what your child learns. So when they're in that classroom again, is the rigor at the right standard according to their current skill level? As Miss Elaine presents, socially emotional. How are they connected to their self? How are they connected to their social world? And then, of course, practical matters. Distance, size of school. Is a small setting? Is classroom size important? So many factors to consider. And again, it comes down to what your child's unique profile looks like. Because you don't have to ask all these questions to the school administration or when you're having that family discussion. You want to ask the questions that are most important to your son or daughter. So with that said, we'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much for coming.